I kind of like forgot, but like exactly at what degree do you kind of like become like a grandmaster in Taekwondo?
In general choice system, it's only at ninth degree. Now, some of the other systems, it's different. In fact, there was a book called Living the Martial Way. I think the author was Forrest Morgan, and he didn't address the organization specifically, but I think it was the Kukiwan, where they reduced the degree for Grandmaster from, oh no, they reduced the degree from Master from a certain degree, a couple, one or two down. And his basic question was, how do you how can you be a master of a system if the system still has more for you to learn? So, even though they called it a grandmaster at fifth or whatever they call it, their system still had new material for sixth or whatever. In general choice system, you learn the last of the technical material uh, by the time you test for seventh degree. That's the last
Okay.
pattern. So, um, to be eighth degree, basically, it requires, depending upon the organization's currently 7 to 8 years active time and grade. And then from eighth to ninth, it would require 8 to 9 years active time and grade.
So now obviously like since you said nowadays I guess there is a little more different requirements for it, but I guess the official requirement is to be like a ninth degree.
Yeah, there is no technical additional requirements for eighth or ninth degree. Now, the organization that I belong to and some of the organizations do have required, because like I said, it's active time and grade. So they do have what they call continuing education requirements. So
Yeah.
depending upon the organization, like my organization has, to advance a degree, you also have minimum 8 hours per year, seminars, courses, whatever.
Okay. So in like your opinion, like to pursue like Taekwondo that long, what do you think it takes to become that level of like a grandmaster?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer. There was when one of my acquaintances training cohorts who was senior to me in grade, I had him in for a referee seminar he conducted. Somebody said, he said to somebody, he said, people ask me what it took to become a master. And he said, keep going to class. Keep going. So for me, it was, the same thing. It was, certainly as you get older, in your younger days, it's like, can I be better than I was yesterday? In your older days, it's like, can I be as good tomorrow as I am today? Because physically, let's face it, we start losing it after a certain period of time. And you take pride in seeing your students develop, and you take pride in spreading the knowledge. So basically, there, like I said, other than continuing to be active and train and teach, there's no specific requirements to become a grandmaster other than the energy to keep going.
I like that. Now obviously I know that technically like 10th degree is like the highest, right?
Not in general choice system. General choice
Oh
system,
no.
it's not.
Oh, it's ninth. Okay.
It's ninth. He had philosophical reasons for nine degrees, also for 10 levels of color belt, but for 9 degrees was that apparently in some Eastern cultures, three is a revered number, and nine is three times three, and nine is the
Oh,
largest single digit number. So for his system, he chose nine.
okay, okay. Okay. Oh, so I might be confusing it with like another system.
Oh, there's other systems where I got 10, 11, who knows?
Yeah. Now, obviously, I know you belong to like the ITF like school, like International Taekwondo Federation.
I no
Right.
longer have any official affiliation with the ITF, the International Taekwondo Federation. The International Taekwondo Federation fractured shortly before General Choi's death and continued to fracture after his death. He was the glue that kept the organization together. Shortly before his death, his son broke away from him, took a large faction with him, surprisingly so to me. Shortly after his death, the North Korean faction decided they wanted to be in charge, and much to my surprise, a large faction broke off and followed them. And then, so then you had the original faction, which I was still part of, was still left. And there was an issue because the United States Taekwondo Federation, which was the U.S. arm of the ITF. The ITF had official government, not government, official national bodies in each country governing their actions in the country. And the head of the USTF, Senior Grandmaster Sarah, after the North Koreans took away a huge faction, a lot of the government employees were calling him and saying, "Sir, we're getting these calls from our employer, the U.S. government, saying, why are you affiliated with this North Korean organization?" Not a good situation. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to resign from the USTF. He says, "You don't have to resign. I'm resigning the USTF as part of the International Taekwondo Federation."
Oh,
And for a long time after that, for 6, 7 years, I continued to maintain my standing with the International Taekwondo Federation, but there was some animosity brewing between the ITF and the USTF for reasons I don't need to go into now. And when I became eligible for 8th degree, and I had been going to their courses and sending them my membership dues and sending them certificates for my students to process and all sorts of monies, and I'm like, well, here I'm eligible for 8th degree. This was 2010. Oh, this was 2009. And I was very friendly with the then president, after General Choi died, Tran Kwan. And I said, "Sir," I says, is there going to be a way for me to test for 8th degree in North America?" And he says, "Well, not presently, but you can come to the championships in Argentina and I'll chair the test board for you." And I'm like, well, kind of a long, expensive trip just to test. And I think I'll wait till there's an opportunity in North America. Well, unfortunately, he was killed in the earthquake in Haiti. And then for whatever reason, when the new president came in and they had something in North America and I submitted all my paperwork, they're like, "Well, you can't test." And I'm like, "Well, why can't I test?" And they're like, "Well, because you're a member of the USTF." And I'm like, "Well, so what? Your constitution says I can't be a member of another international organization, not a national organization. I know because I helped you guys write the new constitution." And the president at that time, Pablo Trottenberg, sadly now deceased, says, "Well, first we have to do what the people want, and then we have to follow the rules." And I'm like, it just shows you how the mindset of Americans sometimes about, the Constitution being the ultimate authority, we have to follow the rules. And
yeah.
so I said, "No, sir, first you have to follow the rules. And then if the people don't like the rules, there's a procedure for them to change the rules." And he's like, "Well, I don't know about that." Anyway, he and the rest of the board basically said, "If you want to test with the ITF and to be promoted at the ITF, you have to leave your instructor." And I said, "See ya, I'm out of here." So that was where I parted with the ITF in 2010.
Now, obviously, like once you ended up getting your ninth degree, like black belt, how like happy were you when you finally got it?
Well, it was something that I had never really contemplated for many, many years. I think the highest rank I contemplated, I tested for 4th degree in 1987. And I said to the gentleman I tested with at that time, I said, "My goal is to be a master instructor, not a master instructor." There were no grandmasters at that time. General Choi was the only one.
Okay.
The first grandmaster after General Choi was promoted in 97. So in 87, it was not even within the realm of thinking that anybody else would be grandmaster. So I says, "I want to be a master instructor under General Choi." And the guy I tested with says, "You'll never make it. He's too old." He says, "He's 65 or whatever. By the time he'll be ancient." Well, as luck would have it, some 15 years later, I did test for 7th degree, and it was actually, while General Choi was too sick to sit on the test board, he was actually there. And it was nice to hear him call me Master Weiss. And he was somewhat acquainted with me because I had hosted him for a course a couple of years earlier. So that was certainly my email. I call up the guy who had been out of Taekwondo for some time. I go, "You are wrong." And he's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, "You said I'd never make it. He was too old, and I made it just barely because he died in June 3 months later. But I made it." So yeah, and at that time in the world there was let's see, my in 2000 that was 2002. So at that time, there were only a handful of Grandmasters in the world. And so it still wasn't something that was, had really contemplated. And certainly it was a big deal, to a certain extent that, personal sense of accomplishment, and also allowed me then to see some of people who I am flattered to have call me their instructor advance in rank as well.
That was good to hear.